Welcome to TimeBenders Talks, the ultimate destination for professional photographers and creative business people. Hosted by Peggy McCartha, a certified professional photographer with over 3.5 decades of experience and the visionary founder of the TimeBenders community. This weekly podcast brings you insightful conversations with business-savvy experts who also excel in their creative fields. Providing you with valuable tips and insights, our mission is to encourage, inspire, and educate you to empower you to find your success. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, you'll find practical advice and motivation to elevate your craft and business. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode.
Ron, welcome. I am so excited that you are doing this podcast with me.
Oh, it's so good to be here.
So this is the first time I've always pre-recorded my podcast and my video shows. I've produced other people's lives, but I've never done my own live. And I watch you and G just nailing the live stuff. And you, every day go live. So I'm like, hey, if I'm going to do this, I want Ron here for the very first TimeBenders Talks live, and we'll have a lot of fun. So I'm really excited that you're here. Tell people about Touch Base Daily, and then we'll start talking about your photography. But I want to talk about Touch Base Daily because I think that's an incredible thing that you're doing.
Well, Touch Base Daily started out of selfish motives.
As it should.
I was like, okay, I'm getting old. I'm becoming a senior citizen, getting close to the number 60. At the time was 58. And I said, I need to figure out a way to let people know that I'm alive each day. And so I went on Instagram, a couple of friends, about 5 of us, and we would pop one every day just to be accountable, also accountability buddies, and just chatting and talking and just kind of like, hey, I'm alive. And then that was it. But then what happened was on Instagram, there were other people that started to follow and become part of this community. And before we knew it, after a year of being on and doing this every day, literally when I first started, it was every day, 7 days a week. And for the first year. And then the second year I said, oh, you know what? Maybe I should give myself Sundays off. So give one day off. And I said, if God rested, maybe I should. So, so I said one day, if I'm melting in the house somewhere and no one knows where I am for a day, at least they can still find me after 2 days. But so I started doing it that way. And again, the audience started to grow. Before we knew it, some days we'll have 100 people that view. Sometimes we'll have 200, 135, 157, those numbers. And so this year, we decided to take it up a notch and move it to YouTube, which has been an amazing experience because I took out this mic I had for years since COVID. And started to dust things off and say, you know what? I think I could do this on YouTube. And I didn't think I was going to learn it as fast as I did. It was a learning curve. And as a matter of fact, you were my first guest for my first live, as in having and what we do on Touch Base Daily is each day represents a theme. So Mondays are motivation days, where I find a quote because I love to be motivated. I'm into quotes, and since I said, let me just share this with people. So Mondays is Motivation Monday. Tuesdays is Tip Tuesdays, where I share photography tips. And Wednesdays is Wisdom Wednesdays, where I interview photographers or other creatives or people that are connected to the creative space that can help us grow our businesses, grow in what we do. And then Thursdays is Trend Watch Thursday, which used to be Thankful Thursday, but it evolved because we started doing politics. And so Thursdays are real politics day. And now we do what's called Roundtable. So we talk about what's the headlines of the day. And then Fridays is one of my favorites, is that I get to lift up other accounts, Instagram accounts and YouTube channels that bless encourage, and inspire. So those are the accounts that we lift up and share. And then I pop on from time to time throughout the week on what's called on Touch Base Daily on the Move, where I'm involved, sharing from like this last weekend. Last Saturday, I was at the Coney Island Mermaid Parade and shared all of the crazies of that, the costumes and the people. But yeah, so that's what we do. And then I definitely take a rest on Sundays. Sundays is my rest day. Don't do anything. But Touch Base Daily has become a passion of love. I look forward to the community. We come in every day. There's usually anywhere between 15, 20 people. Sometimes we'll get 25 people in there. And we're just chatting. And what an honor to be able to, that someone will join you every day from all over well, I can say now from all over the globe, because we have people there from Tanzania, from India, from South Africa, from London, and obviously across the country. So it's a blessing. It's really fun. Lots of fun.
Lots of fun. And you have amazing guests, and it's always, always a lot of fun. I try to hit Wednesdays and Thursdays because I love, to hear what other photographers are doing. And then Thursdays, that's where I check in like the political. I, my husband's very much political. I think I try to like protect myself because I get so emotionally involved in things that sometimes I just have to protect myself. But it's also good to know and be aware of conversations that are going on. So anyway,
And
Ron
I'm a
Foster,
political junkie.
Touch Base Daily. Find him on YouTube and follow him. And I'll
Yes,
put
and
the
we're on
links.
at 10 o'clock Eastern time. 10 o'clock Eastern time every morning at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Yes, which is early for me. Are you on at 10 o'clock or 11? Oh, Eastern.
It used to be 11 o'clock. Now it's 10 o'clock.
Oh, okay. That's what happened then. All
Yes, we're
right.
on at 10 o'clock now. The reason why is because so many people in the audience were like, Ron, we need to, when you have guests on, we need to do overtimes. And I was like, well, usually when I have guests on, immediately at 12 o'clock, I would have to try to run out at 12:15 to do projects for my clients.
Gotcha.
And, but so kill two birds with one stone is that I was working for Photoville here in New York City and on the team and on their staff. And that required me to be at the Brooklyn Bridge every morning at 11 o'clock. And sorry, at 11:30. So it was a chance to get me. I said, let me just move this to 10 o'clock. But then the audience started to
Okay.
like it. And
I thought,
we did
okay, that's
overtime.
why I've been missing it. I've literally been missing it. Okay, now I'm caught
Yes.
up. I'll change my alarm on my phone and I'll be there on time from now on.
10
That's
o'clock every
okay.
day.
All right, because
Yes.
I've been seeing it on playbacks and going, what am I doing wrong? I'm not listening. I'm not listening. That happens. That happens. So the other reason that I love talking to Ron is he is an amazing photographer and he's an amazing business person. And I love that, for me, most people know that photography is the only thing I've ever done. Which has its benefits and its follies. I mean, I had to learn business kind of in the middle of my career. Like I've been a professional photographer for many years before I realized that, what, if I want to actually make good money, I need to run this like a business. But you always were passionate about photography, but you didn't do that as a career until just really fairly recent, honestly, compared to all the accomplishments you've accomplished. You've been published in National Geographic, you've been published in the New Yorker, you've been published
The New
in
Yorker,
you've
Interior
got stuff
Design
in,
Magazine.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you've got stuff in the museums. Like you're like really got some stuff going on out there. So tell us about why you decided to follow your passion and actually, make this your career.
When I first started out, it was a hobby, and my friends were like, "You need to do this as a career. You need to do this. You should do. You should be a photographer." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right." I was like, "Yeah, you guys are interested in me becoming a photographer because you know me, and you're just trying to egg me on." And but it was one of my friends, Ashley, who, as a matter of fact, I just talked to her, text her about an hour ago. And her father worked for National Geographic, and he had just passed away. And she calls me up, and we're talking, and she says, "Ron, if you don't take photography serious, I'm going to fly back to New York and kick you in the pants." And she said to me, she says, "Ron, you have my father's eyes." And for someone to say that to you about their father who had just passed away, in order to get you to the point to say, look, you need to acknowledge this, acknowledge this passion and this gift that you have, it really meant the world to me, and it made me stop and take account. And so I had to say, wait a minute, Ashley would not be saying this unless she was serious, because she just lost her dad. And so she reached out, and I said, you know what, I think I'll start taking some photos. And I had just got back from South Africa, and I was like, okay. And my friends, I had just signed up on Instagram. It was the first time on Instagram, and people were seeing my photos, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, love your work, love your photos." And then one of my friends ended up saying, "Hey, you know what? We need to go back to Africa. We need to get you back to Africa, and I'm going to plan a trip for all of us to go so you can take pictures." And I was like, okay, yeah, right. I know, as you can see, I'm very cynical. I'm a cynical person. I never take people at their word. I just like, okay, yeah, right. Okay. So anyway, he did. He came back to me a couple of weeks later, said, "Ron, this is the details. We're going to be in Boston. I create this whole package. We'll be in South Africa. We'll be in Namibia. We'll be in Botswana. We'll be in Zimbabwe. And then we're heading to the Middle East." So, oh, that sounds good. He said, "How much time do you have on your calendar?" I said, it's going to take 3 weeks. I said, "Okay, I got 5 weeks vacation. Let me go to my boss and the company and say, okay, may I have 3 weeks off, because this is an exhibition of a lifetime.
Right.
One, to be an American, to hop in a Jeep and drive throughout these countries and photograph them every step of the way, or every mile of the way."
Yeah.
And I went to my boss, and say, "Hey, I need this time off." In December, it was March when I went to them, so it was December. And long story short, they said no. And after making me wait a whole month to give me the answer, they said, "No, we can't let you go." And I was like, I got 5 weeks vacation. You can't let me go for 3. And I've been at this company for 12 years, and I've never asked for anything. Okay, no problem.
Right.
And then I went downstairs. I made a phone call and said, "Ben, book the trip."
Book the
He goes,
trip.
"Oh my gosh, they gave you the timeout. They gave you the timeout." I said, "No." They said no. But at the end of the year, in December, I will be handing in my my resignation, and starting my new life as a photographer.
Yep. Sometimes you got to be
And
pushed.
I had to be pushed. And it was interesting, because it wasn't until I said yes to me, it was a closed door. But immediately when I said yes to me, all of the doors start opening. I didn't even know how I was going to get to Africa. I didn't even know how I was going to pay for Africa. I didn't know any of it, but I just simply stepped out on faith, and also began to do the work. They all say, the old saying is, "Works without deeds is dead." So faith, so you got faith without works is dead. So you have to work at what you want to do. So I ended up going to every single free class in New York City. I went to Adorama, B&A, Sony, anyone that was having a free class, because I was working and I couldn't afford to go to photo school. So I went to every single class, and I remember topping it off with a Nikon class. And then they had me on the streets on an assignment. I went out on the streets and took pictures. And then I run into this woman, and she says, "Hey, you're a photographer?" I said, "Yeah." Like for the first time, I said yes, and she happened to be talking to me, and she's saying, "Oh, that's a good photo. That's a good shot. That's a good shot." So then I said to her, "Are you a photographer?" She goes, "No, but I love photography." And then we start talking and having good, great conversation. And then what happened? Before I went to the park, like the day before, I had just put in for a refinance with um, my bank, which was in some troubles with the government. They had hearings in front of Congress. Won't say the name of the bank, but something told me not to go with the refinance with my current mortgage provider. I go into this I'm in this park. This woman's talking. I'm like, who is this woman? She's kind of strange. She's a little off the, like I always say spectrum. She's a little off. Anyway, she starts talking, and I tell her what I was about to do, and I was going to Africa, and I was going to finance it and refinance my home, and yada yada. And she says, "Who are you going to finance with?" And I told her the bank. She said, "No, that will rape you. That's not good. That's a horrible bank. Yada yada yada." And I was like, "Oh my God, she's so emotional." But really, it was an amazing moment because what happened was she then tells me, um, I have a I know a vice president of a bank that can help you.
Wow.
And I was like, excuse me? She goes, yeah, I know someone. As a matter of fact, I'm a personal coach, and she is one of my clients, and I can connect you with her. And literally, it was a connection, and the banker is still my friend to this day. She's one of my supporters. But what she made that refi so easy. She took care of everything for me. I didn't have to go back and forth. I didn't have to think. She just kept saying, "Ron, what do you need? Ron, this. Ron, what do you want to do? What do you want to create? Blah, blah, blah." And she just made it happen. And it goes to show you and that showed me a lot, is that if you start to say yes to yourself, the door, I always say, the universe will provide everything you need. And it was so funny because right after I say yes, I worked in retail. So I walk into this, I walked back to the building after saying yes to my friends on the phone that I'm going on this trip. Then I go in the store. Some customers come up to me and say, "Hey, I need help with such and such." And I end up talking to them. And it turned out that they were like, "We never lived in such small spaces. And so we're new to New York." And I was like, "Okay, where are you from?" They were like, "Botswana." I said, "You won't believe this. I just booked a trip to Botswana with my friends just 15, 20 minutes ago." And he
Oh,
was like,
wow.
"Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You need to talk to my wife." And I said, "Why?" She goes, "She's an ambassador. We were stationed in Botswana for many, many years, and I need to
Wow.
give you all the contacts."
That's so awesome.
I was blown away. I went in the bathroom and started to cry, because then I knew I was on the right path, that I was no longer in what Ron wanted to do. It was almost like this divine intervention. And literally, from that moment I said yes, every door that needed to be opened. And when I first started the journey, I didn't even know how I was going to make it to Africa. But by time December came along, December 4th, I handed in my resignation. December 10th, I was on a plane to South Africa to live, not for 3 weeks, for 3 months. And I ended up living in the southern region and photographing every person, every animal, every building, everything I could photograph. And I did it every day for 3 months straight. And that's how I was able to perfect my skill as a photographer. I became one with my camera. And, but again, every door started to open. I mean, doors that I didn't even expect to opened. I ended up being in Safari for 2 weeks. I ended up being outside of Cape Town. living in Johannesburg, went to all these different countries, hanging out in the Middle East.
That's
Yeah, it was amazing.
and it starts with this, and Merrick said, yes, say yes to me. I love it, Ron. And that's really, no matter what you're doing in life, it's when you quit fearing what other people are going to think, when you quit trying to please everyone else, and you
Hmm.
actually become authentic and do what you want to do when things start working out. If you're like, oh, yeah, that's great for Ron, but things don't work out like that for me, well, maybe you need to sit down, like we say in the Time Benders, and figure out what your just statement is. What do you actually want? And start saying yes to that. Because I think that's that. When you said that, I was like, yeah. It's like, it's so true. We don't, so many times we're so worried about pleasing everybody else, and what are people going to think, and what if, and this isn't the way it's done, and all of these things. But when we just say yes to us, like, we have gifts and talents inside of us, and if we're if we take the time to figure out how we can use those gifts and talents, then guess who's going to be a lot more happier? You're going to be more happy, and you're going to be more fulfilled, and all of
Yes.
the other things can't help but to work out, because you're walking in that energy and in that light. And hey, G's here today with us.
Hey, G, what's going on, G?
This is just, I love that. So it started off like in a whirlwind, like the stars aligned,
The
and
stars aligned.
3 months
Everything
of it,
worked.
that's an intensive, like that's an intensive photography class that you took. you
Oh,
know
yeah.
Self-immersive. It's like, you learn, because you get so in tune with it, and so engulfed in it, that you can't help but better yourself and go, okay, wait, if I push it here and I do this, and I let me push this limit and see what happens. So that is awesome. Gee, I'm so excited that you are here on my first ever live. I was saying in the beginning that G and Ron inspired me, because you guys like are nailing it with these live shows all over the place. So I'm like, all right, I gotta get on, quit pre-recording, and just get on here and do it. So being saying yes to me, there we go.
There you go, saying yes to you. I mean, it's an interesting phenomena because, like you said, so many times we're always. I mean, first of all, it's always the fear barrier of what is it going to be like? How am I going to do this? What am I going to sound like? What do I look like? And that was when I say when that whole life starting. I say that was really the beginning of my new life. Um, started. It really set the groundwork and foundation to how I would live my life as a photographer to this day. And then sometimes I may get a little shifted, or I may get deterred, have a detour here and there. But at the end of the day, if you do the best you can and you use all the skill sets that you've been provided for living your life, you can't go wrong. And you just live in your best self. I try not to live like anybody else. I'm quirky. I got all kinds of other things that are going on, but I do it in my fullness of who I am. And I have to tell you, Touch Base Daily and being a photographer have really given me truly a whole new life. I mean, I'm an ambassador to the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. I photograph different corporations and companies and charities, and I've photographed the governor, the mayor, and all these other people that happen to cross my path. I would have never been in those spaces if it wasn't for my camera. Yeah, so it's amazing.
I tell people that I've done so many cool things over my lifetime, and it literally every single one of them, my camera was my ticket in the door.
That's
I've been
right.
able to meet so many amazing people, and photograph so many amazing people, and be in so many amazing spaces. And that's that's due to the fact that I've just decided, like, early on, I knew this is what I wanted to do, and I chased it, and I chased it. So you finally came to, like, the fact that, hey, I actually am a photographer. Let's do this as a career. What would you say your biggest struggle was, in the career side of photography? You know, a lot of times us creative business people like to focus on our talent, and we forget that it's also a business. Did you have a time where you were kind of, you know, just focused on being like an amazing photographer, and you weren't really focused so much on the business? Or did you come into this really business minded and really focused? What how did that work for you, and what were some of the struggles that you had to overcome?
Well, that is a twofold answer to that question. And one is, even though I was working in retail when I decided to go to photography full time, my life before retail was on Wall Street. So I spent 15 years on Wall Street. Now, just because you're on Wall Street doesn't mean you're going to be business savvy. But it did give me some foundation, a mindset. It gave me a mindset of what it was to be business minded and not savvy, minded. And then what happened later when I came back home from Africa, when I returned home from Africa, this same woman that introduced me to her banker became a friend, because it turned out that she lived across the street from me. We're in a park like 8 blocks away, 10 blocks
That
away.
is
And
hilarious.
it turns out she lives literally, I can see her apartment from my window. And we never ran into each other. She lived there for many, many decades, and I lived here for decades, and we never ran into each other. Anyway, she introduced me to the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. And what she ended up saying is that, Ron, you cannot do business alone. You cannot do this alone. You need structure, and you need friends. You need accountability. You need to connect with people. You need a business like master class, master connections to help you along the way and to help you understand. And at first I was like, oh, I got this. I can do this. I don't need to be in no meet networking events and networking groups. I'm just not. That's not me. I'm quite an introvert and an extrovert. So, but I learned quickly after the first 2 weeks of being in business for myself after returning back home from Africa. I was like, okay, I need to start making money. And I remember being in the shower having an anxiety attack, saying, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing? What have I done wrong? I need to go back to. I need a 9 to 5. I need real money." I was like, this is crazy. What have you done? What have you done? And then it's so funny. She ended up becoming my coach as well. And she said, hey, she just happened to call in the middle of having an anxiety attack in the shower. And I'm talking to her. I said, hey, what's going on? She said, hey, what's going on? Just called to say hello. And she said, how you doing? I said, well, I'm having a breakdown in the shower.
You know,
He was like, what is wrong? I said, well, I think I may have made a mistake. I'm totally lost. I don't know what to do. And I said, I think I'm going to join your networking group. I think I'm going to hang out with some folks that know what's going on. But it was literally having a meltdown. And it was the best move of my career, because I knew nothing about business, how to run a business. What do you do? Who do you need to call? Who do you need to talk to? The policies, there was a whole lot than just getting clients. You
yeah.
had to know how to, where to put money, laws, regulations, all that stuff. So
Yeah.
what was beautiful about joining the Chamber of Commerce is that I was able to join the networking group of people that were small business owners that were trying to survive and live and thrive themselves. And so I had it. And then also what the chamber provided for me is that every week they had classes on business. So how to do social media, how to source out really business connections, how to reach out to people, how to find leads, how to. And I went to every single class. Like I so the same philosophy I did to start photography as a
Mm-hmm.
photographer,
Mm-hmm.
I dove into as a business person, as
Dove
a
into the
running a small business.
business and focused 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, so I went to every single class, everything they had, so much so, no one knew me when I first started at the chamber. I became a household name at the chamber because I was at every
Every
event. So much so that after I think it was a year and a half, maybe 2 years in, they were like, "Would you like to be one of the ambassadors? Would you like to represent the chamber?" I was like,
That's
"What?"
awesome.
And so I'm a believer that if you need to learn, you got to dive in.
Yeah.
I also joined SCORE, who is a amazing group um, that works to help small businesses, the SBA and all that other stuff. So I started really building and learning and growing. Taking workshops, webinars, anything I can learn, I was there to learn. And that is how I was able to say, I can't even believe
Mm-hmm.
that I've been a full-time photographer for more than 7 years already.
That's
It will be 8 years come December. And I still can't believe that all these years have gone by and I still have a house. I still have a roof over my head.
Yeah, I mean, I literally it's G commented this. If I can get it, there we go. This freelance life is not for the faint at heart, and it's not. I
It's
mean,
not.
people. I remember early years, people would my kids were young and other moms say, "Oh, you're so lucky you have your own business. You can do all these things and you don't have to, and I'm like, they have no idea
No
like
idea.
how many hours I spend. And yes, I made it to all my kids' doctor's appointments and all my kids' sporting events, but they don't know how neglected my children were in the evenings and weekends because I was working so much because I
Yeah.
hadn't got the whole running a business thing down yet. And I was literally working holidays and weekends and evenings. And literally anytime somebody wanted me, I was
Mhm.
like, yeah, I can do that, and no boundaries, no nothing. And it was a mess. There was no balance. It was me chasing money,
Mm.
trying to pretend like I was running a business. And that's when you're running a business, money should be chasing you because you should have all of the foundations in place. You should have all the structures and everything in place that money's coming to you and you're running your business, you know. And that was not the first half of my career. The first half of my career was like, I gotta feed these kids. I gotta, pay the mortgage. I gotta do all these things. We need a vehicle. I need new camera equipment. All of these things that were really overwhelming. And I think that's why eventually I kind of did the same thing that you did. I was like, all right, I need to figure out how to run a business. I need to like pull back and focus on that, not just focus on, oh, look at me, I'm a photographer, but really pull back and focus on the business side. And I think it's a trap that a lot of people fall into. And then they get frustrated and then they go back to a job that they hate and they hate it even more because they had a taste of this. And it's this cycle that can be solved with community and education and really getting together with the
Mhm.
right people. So I love your story, and I love that that you're out here doing it, and you've done so many amazing things in such a short time. I've been doing this for 35 plus years, and you've been doing this professionally for 8 years, and you just done just amazing things, and I just always respect that, and I think it's so cool.
It's I am one of the things I am I have to say, I'm very fortunate that somehow, somewhere in my life, I've I've always known the importance of mentoring and being mentored, or surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than yourself. I am surrounded by a lot of people that are smarter than me. And from my touch base daily, the audience that appears every week and every day that pops on, to the photography, one of my mentors, and my first mentor, Omar Ramos, is a photographer in Texas, and we've known each other 40 plus years, and he's been a photographer pretty much all his life. And so he when I decided to make this journey, I get on the phone, I call him up, say, hey, this is what I'm thinking of, what do you think? And and he gave me so much wisdom on the topic of being a photographer, pitfalls, what to look forward to, what not to do, what to be aware of, how to prevent burnout. And he was sharing from his own experiences. And I am one who will take notes. I don't have to be beat in the head to know that it hurts. Yeah, I will take
I'll
your
believe you.
beating.
I'll believe you.
I become a believer. So I don't need to experience it. I will just watch and listen and say, okay, noted. And but because I had so many cool people in my life, not just photographers, but just people in general. I went to certain family members. I went to some of my old clients that had businesses of their own, that had been in their fields for a long time, and I shared with them the whole picture of what was happening before I left my job. People were like, "Oh wow, you just left your job." No, I sought counsel. I am a
Mhm.
believer that use in a positive way the voices and the minds of the people that are in your life. There are certain people in your life that know you and you are transparent with. They know you, you know them, and they can speak into your life in a way that strangers can't, because they know your quirks, they know your power points, they know your weak points, they know you.
Mhm.
And so when I presented this journey that I was about to take to them, they were like, Ron, everything's lining up. Things are happening. This is, and people were sharing. Um, but it is definitely a village. You have to find your village, and this village continues to grow. I remember when Gwendolyn introduced me to Peggy, and then I was like, "Oh, I like Peggy. We're like from the same cloth." And then we start talking, and then she comes to New York, and I'm still like, "Who is this Peggy?" You still kind of like. But when she came to New York and we hung out, I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're friends. We're friends for life. I know it." And we just talked and shared. But I'm like that with all my friends. My friends and I, my close friends and I, we have lots of conversations, and that's where the wisdom is. The wisdom is not so much. I mean, I love read books. I read a lot of books. I read, and I do YouTube and all other stuff to learn. But my best lessons in life come from my friends who are full of wisdom and not afraid to share it, and not afraid also to correct me when I need to be corrected.
That
Accountability is important.
that's it right there. If you hang around with people that are not gatekeeping, people that really want to see you succeed, I don't believe in competition. I
Mhm.
believe that if, we all lift each other up and we all help each other, then we're all rising together.
Mhm.
Like me helping you is not hurting me. Me helping you is helping me, because then I'm learning something and I'm reinforcing something and I'm seeing what I told you work in your life. So when I'm having a hard time, I'm like, wait, I'm not full of crap. I saw what I said work. So it's going to work for me again because it's worked for me in the past. And then, you get that pulling each other up. My dad, we have to do Ron Stoffer quote. My dad was an entrepreneur his whole life, and he told me, I mean, I was young, and I think he was hanging out with someone, and I was like, he's your competition. Like, why would you hang? And my dad said, no, never, ever, ever be afraid of someone that's better than you. You should always be around people that are better than you, because they are going to make you look smarter. They're going to make you look stronger. They're going to make you look better.
Yes.
And that impacted me at a very young age. And so I seek out people that are better than me and I want to hang out with them. Because if I'm hanging out with people that are better than me, people are going to assume that I'm in that same class, right?
It's true. Birds of a feather flock together.
And so, you always want to, but you have to be around people that actually care. And that's,
Yes.
people that are willing to share their wisdom and sharing doesn't have to happen in a workshop. It can happen in a conversation. It can happen over a glass of tea. It can happen, on a walk. My husband and I still talk about when we were in New York. One of the main highlights of that trip was the afternoon that we walked the streets and we did street photography, and then we went and ate a pizza, and then we went and had a beer, and it was just, and we talked shop the whole time, and my husband didn't even get bored with it. Usually he's like, oh, photography again. But
He was like, these two over here.
but we just had such a great time, because we all cared. We all cared. We all wanted to hear, how did you
Yes.
succeed? How did you end up walking up an active volcano and photographing this? Which is a story we'll talk about next time you're on my podcast, because that's a phenomenal
Yes,
story.
I am a volcano climber.
Yes. So, these are things that it's so important. And I love everything that you said today, Ron. So, my takeaway is you say yes to yourself, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, that are also willing to impart wisdom to you,
Yes.
and, have fun. Focus on your business, not just your craft, and just enjoy your life and watch the universe show up for you as much as you show up for you.
I agree. And like I said, and it's a journey. And journeys are not straight lines, as they say. It's not like it's a straight line from point A to point B. You may
Right.
look at it on a map and say, oh, that's pretty close, right?
Yeah.
However, there's a lot of valleys you may have to go down and a lot of mountains you may have to climb to get to that point that looks so close on the map. And I say that from because I used to hike all the time. I've hiked Mount Washington. I've hiked the Grand Canyons. I've hiked all over some places around the country and outside of the country. And you look at the map, the hiking map, and you're like, oh, that point is so close, until you start to get on the trail and you realize there's a mountain between you and that place, or there's a mountain and a valley between you and that place. On the map it looks close, but you got to climb up and then go back down and then go further down and then come back up. And you realize when you get to your destination, holy moly, I'm worn out. However, the journey was beautiful, because it may have been strenuous. It may
Yeah.
have been taxing, climbing can I tell you about climbing Mount Washington? That is one of the most grueling hikes I've ever done. And you just don't know where you're going to end up because there's valleys and there's turns and there's twists. But when you get to the peak and you look down and look over everything, you're like, wow. But like there's an old adage. I think it's it was really from the I have this book called this thing about the Pilgrim's Journey, Pilgrim's Progress. The book is called, and when you go through all of these things, you go to the mountains, right? And part of this journey is always the mountains. For most of us, we all have a mountain experience. Our photo makes it to National Geographic. Our photo makes it to the New Yorker. Our photo makes it to the think about that.
Yeah.
3 major magazines. And you can say, oh, I can live here and say, oh, I made it. No. Most of your career is not 3 magazines.
Mm-mm.
Most of your career is never on the mountains. Those little guys make, I call them mountains, where people get to see your work. You're on top. Everyone sees your work. However, most of your journey is on the flatland or in the valley
or in the desert,
ravine, or in the mud, or in
right.
the canopy over
It's
the
true.
forest.
It's true.
That's the journey.
Mm-hmm.
It's very rare in your journey called life that you rise above the tree line and can see everything and the beauty of it all. But guess what? Here's the clincher. Nothing grows on a mountain peak. Nothing grows on a mountain peak. It's a cold place on a mountain peak. And it takes years if things can grow on that mountain peak. Now, forget being in Colorado climbing Pikes Peak. The woman said, don't touch the soil. If you step on that soil, nothing will grow there for 20 years. It takes 20 years for the ground to sprout life. And I was like, whoa, I was like 18. I was like 21 years old when it happened, 22 years old. Good lesson in the beginning. But what I've learned in life is that nothing grows on the mountaintop. You got to come back down to where the food is.
Yeah.
And the food is in the valley. The food is in the valley. You can only grow good, nourishing food in the valley. You can only eat the meat if you decide to be meat eaters. The sheep can only live in the valley. The cows can only live in the valley. Nothing can live other than in the valley to continue to grow. So if that encourages anyone, you'll have a few peaks. But most of our lives in our journey, in our career journeys, is going to be spent in the valleys.
And that's why the journey is more important than the destination, because you only stay at the destination for a minute.
That's right.
And then you go to the next destination and the next destination. But the journey is always amazing. Even if you want to cry, even if you want to give up, it's beautiful. And it was an experience, and it was wonderful.
Yeah. I love
Ron, you dropped some really good nuggets here today. This was really amazing. Thank you so much for joining me for my very first live podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
And I always love talking to you. And it's been a minute since we got to catch up. So this was a real honor. So thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to close, and I'll see everybody else next week. And Ron, we'll be hanging out at the TimeBenders between now and then.
Indeed. Thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate it. Thank you for inviting me. This was absolutely wonderful. You got me out of myself. You always know how to pull me out of myself.
Well, you guys, now you know why you need to go follow on Touch Base Daily. Ron Foster, Touch Base Daily on YouTube. Make sure you go follow him. All right. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening to TimeBenders Talks. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Being a creative business person doesn't have to be lonely. Schedule a tour of the TimeBenders community today and discover how you can join this amazing group of creative professionals and be a part of a supportive and encouraging community where everyone thrives and succeeds. Click on the link in the description.